How do you instill critical thinking in someone else?
Yeah. Hey, listen, I like to learn, right? I mean, doesn't everybody like to learn? Most of the things I have my mentor always told me, he said, people don't learn things in good times. That's just not, you're sitting in class and that's not enjoyable. When you're sitting there in a calculus class and they're trying to teach you something, that you have to be stretched and challenged, right? Well, that's true in concepts as well.
It's fascinating because whenever I have the abortion debate with people,
I'm glad you finished that sentence. I thought you were saying when I had the abortion.
No, whenever I have the abortion debate with people, a lot of times the argument is, well, a woman should be allowed to terminate her baby because she's poor, because the baby will grow up poor, because the baby won't have. And it bothers me a lot because I think to myself, you guys think that tribulation and all of this is somehow bad. It actually makes people's character better, right? Yeah. What you go through shapes who you are, and you have the perspective and you've gained that. And we live in a society where nobody wants anybody to feel any sort of, tribulations, to go through anything hard, to go through anything severe. We're saying we are tossing a life aside because they might be poor.
Yeah.
That's really troubling to me because that's a society who thinks that you should have the world handed to you on a silver platter. You shouldn't have to work for anything. You shouldn't have to go through anything. You should just get whatever it is that you want. And if your life isn't perfect, then it's not worth living.
Yeah, I mean, at least by American standards, I've been pretty poor. I was still happy to be alive.
Right. Right.
I've definitely the darkest times in my life where I became the strongest.
Mm-hmm.
I became a really good actor when I was severely depressed, doing YouTube videos, getting shoved out of Hollywood. Like they're like, this guy's too real. Yeah. He's gonna call us out. And I was gonna kill myself. I was like, this is it. My whole life I thought I was gonna be an actor. But then after that came out of that darkness, I was a better actor. I was like, I had control of the hate. I can channel it now. I actually know what it feels like. I can recreate it and I can focus it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you have a lot of you have a spectrum of emotions to pull from, which you only get. I mean, I come from a very poor background in the UK, single parent, struggled all the way up, and it definitely made me a better actor because I'm like, how can you go to the places that I've been to? You can't if you've never experienced it. But the other thing is, one of the most damaging things I think, and we kind of, I don't want to say we trivialize it, but we don't really talk about it as much, is the notion of my truth. Like, that is so damaging because you can't learn anything unless you are trying to find out the truth of something, like what it actually is, rather than what it is to you, right? Because you can be subjective, but what really matters is objectivity in that situation. Yeah. So the truth is what matters. And what you hear all the time is, well, that's my truth, that's your truth. No, there is the truth.
Well, if nothing is ever wrong, then how can anything ever be right? Therefore, how can you learn? Because again, if 2 + 2 is 5, that's wrong. They're actually now making that debate that to say that's wrong is racist. How do you ever learn anything? Because that's it's facetious, it's ludicrous, right? Mm-hmm. But that's where we're at.
I agree that their objective truth is really what you're ideally striving for. But I feel like you have to draw a line eventually. I was hanging out with Michael Knowles and I drew a 6 on a piece of paper and I said, what is this number? Just as a thought experiment. I put it down upside down in front of him and he was like, this is a 9. I was like, well, this is a 6 and we're both right. We're both speaking the truth and we are both correct. But at some point, I could turn the paper on its side and be like, that is an E. That is a squiggly snail. And like, it becomes psychotic if we can't find some form of subjective agreement on this objective state of reality.
Well, here's the difference with that, though. You wrote it as whatever you wrote it as with an intent, right? It didn't become a 9 because he sees it upside down. It is a 6, and your intention is that it is a 6, right? The concept of it outside of reality is it's a 6. So the issue is, do you understand someone else's perspective on that, given where they're sitting? That's one thing. But the reality of it doesn't change, right? Because it can't.
Well, it's like I said a minute ago where I said, by American standards, I've been poor. but I've also been in third world countries where I knew that what abject poverty really looked like, right?
And how joyous are they?
Exactly. And it's a perspective thing, right? Where you're coming from. I was seeing an interview the other day with a gal from North Korea, and she said, we don't have a word for depression because in this communist utopia, we're not depressed. So there's no word for it in the language. It's not allowed. And again, I think perspective is a major deal, right? That's why for me to hear Harry Sisson go off the way he does, I'm like, you've never really been through anything. So from my perspective as a 50-year-old man who's raised 4 children, I've been through all these different tribulations in life, successes and failures. I'm a whole Rudyard Kipling's If, right? So if I hear you say that, it's like a 20-year-old pastor telling me how to live my life. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying your perspective ain't fully developed